Ever wondered how ancient myths can, get a second life, how they become even more relevant today? Well, you're in for a treat, because today we're taking a deep dive into GeGeGe no Kitarō. This is a true cornerstone of Japanese popular culture. Been captivating audiences for, over half a century now. And it's not just any manga or anime. It's really the definitive modern take on Yōkai, that vast kind of mysterious pantheon of Japanese spirits, monsters, supernatural things from folklore.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to unpack the genius of the creator, Shigeru Mizuki. We'll explore how he took these often obscure figures from folklore and turned them into this, dynamic, accessible narrative. He used these ancient beings you see as really powerful allegories to critique the alienating side of modernization, explore that lingering trauma of war, and to advocate for sort of a more harmonious way for humanity, nature, and that unseen spiritual realm to coexist.
Yeah, and we pulled together a fantastic stack of sources for this deep dive. We've got academic folklore studies, some deep analyses of the series, visual stuff, the narrative choices. So get ready for some surprising insights, maybe a fresh perspective on how this ghostly kid and his peculiar friends became such cultural touchstones. Okay, so let's jump right in. We're talking about Yōkai. But what makes Kitarō's version of them so, groundbreaking? It's way more than just a monster gallery, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's really the core insight here. In GeGeGe no Kitarō Yōkai are this incredibly broad, diverse class. Spirits, monsters, ghosts, apparitions, the whole spectrum. But what's crucial, I think, is Mizuki's rejection of that simple good versus evil thing. These aren't just heroes or villains. They're complex beings. They have their own societies, their own motivations, even distinct moral codes. Some are helpful, some mischievous. Yeah, many are hostile, but some just exist. They're kind of indifferent unless, you provoke them.
And it's fascinating how porous that boundary is. Like you said, it's not just some hidden world. It overlaps with ours. How does the series show that the line is so thin?
Well, that's it. They don't just live off in some magical land. They're woven into the fabric of our world. You find them in these unseen spaces, old graveyards, deep forests, ancient trees, and get this, they even have their own dedicated Yōkai apartment complexes, which is, wonderfully weird. The 2018 anime, for instance, it explicitly shows the Fudatenjin Shrine as a physical gateway. It directly connects the human city, Chofu, with the supernatural Yuji forest. It's like a constant reminder the unseen is always just like a step away.
Right. And within this mixed world, Mizuki didn't just throw them all together randomly. He actually organized them, put them into groups. Yeah. How does that help the story?
Yeah, that's key. Mizuki knew that to tell a compelling story, he needed, order from chaos. He didn't just list Yōkai, he built a whole society for them, like a complex supernatural ecosystem with its own sides and fights. So you've got Kitarō's own family, the main good guys, a really diverse team, like his famous eyeball dad, Madame Oya.
Oh, yeah, eyeball dad, yeah, classic.
Right, and the loyal Nurikabe, that big wall guy, and the flying cloth, Etan Momen. Then you have your classic bad guy, Japanese Yōkai. They keep showing up as antagonists, like the super cunning Numerihion or the monstrous Yuki. But crucially, for those big allegorical stories, you get whole categories of foreign Yōkai.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Western ones like Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, usually led by this powerful demon Blackbeard, or even Chinese Yōkai like the vampire Yasha. Having these clear divisions, these groups, it's essential for setting up the conflicts in the show.
You mentioned those big conflicts. What about the Great Yōkai War, that huge battle between the Japanese and foreign Yōkai? How does that work as an allegory for Japan's post-war identity?
Yeah, that's where it gets really, really interesting. The Great Yōkai War arc. It first popped up in the 1960s. And you have to remember, this was a time of intense national soul-searching for Japan right after the American occupation. So this arc, it wasn't just a cool fight scene. It's this powerful way to explore Japan's identity after the war, using these stories to make bigger points. The Japanese Yōkai all banding together, that represents like a reassertion of Japan's own unique traditional culture. It's a symbol of their indigenous heritage standing strong.
Against the Western influence.
Exactly. The invading Western Yōkai symbolize that overwhelming foreign cultural military influence that Japan had to deal with, had to reconcile during that whole era. And even the internal fights, against the bad Japanese Yōkai, those often represent Japan's own domestic problems, the societal issues they needed to sort out from within.
Okay, so let's talk about this rule of perception. The idea that you can only see Yōkai if you believe in them. That's more than just a convenient plot point, isn't it? What's that telling us about Mizuki himself, his philosophy?
Oh, definitely. This rule, it's basically a direct translation of Mizuki's personal philosophy. He often talked about lamented how humanity had lost its connection to the unseen world. He saw modern scientific rationalism, materialism, all that, as forces that basically made Yōkai obsolete. And in his view, that really impoverished the human spirit. So the series suggests that Yōkai didn't disappear because they stopped existing, but because modern society lost the spiritual capacity, the imaginative power to even perceive them.
Wow, so it's a cultural lack in his eyes.
A profound cultural deficiency, yeah. That's how he saw it.
And Kitarō himself, he's sort of the bridge here, right? He plays a big part in managing this gap.
Yes, absolutely. Kitarō's main job is being a mediator, a peacekeeper. He often protects humans from the malicious Yōkai. But as the series goes on, that role gets way more complex. He often has to protect the Yōkai from humans, from their destructive, disrespectful actions. He becomes the guardian of this really fragile balance between the two worlds.
So, yeah, conflict drives the plot, obviously. But the end goal, the big message, seems to be about coexistence.
Precisely. The show consistently demonstrates that these fights, they're rarely unprovoked. They almost always start because of human actions.
Like what?
Like environmental destruction, corporate greed, desecrating sacred spots, or even just forgetting the old traditions, the old ways of showing respect. So Yōkai attacks are often shown as, well, almost a justifiable consequence when humanity breaks these unspoken rules. It's a powerful message about respect for nature and tradition.
Beyond the story, the look of the series is just so iconic. How did Mizuki create that visual style? Especially since it spans decades, different animation approaches.
Mizuki's art, yeah, it's a masterclass in synthesis, really. He blended traditional Japanese art forms like ukiyo-e, those vibrant woodblock prints,
Right, very dynamic.
And imaki, those narrative picture scrolls that tell a story. He mixed those with modern manga techniques. A lot of his Yōkai designs come directly from old Edo period catalogs, like Toriyama Sekien's Gazu Hyakiyaku. He kept their often grotesque, uncanny look. And what's really clever is how he deliberately contrasted these super detailed Yōkai with more cartoonishly drawn human characters. It really makes the rich natural and supernatural worlds pop. Then the 2018 series took that foundation and modernized it. Sophisticated animation, a darker, more horror-tinged color palette, high contrast lighting, really ramps up the eerie atmosphere.
Yeah, the sound, even the title, GeGeGe, it's so memorable, so evocative.
It is, and the sound design is just as important. That title, GeGeGe, it's an ideophone, like a sound symbolic word. Apparently it came from Mizuki's own childhood inability to pronounce his name, Shigeru. Yeah, and it just evokes this croaky, crittery, monstery feeling, perfectly captures the show's mix of eerie and whimsical. And that theme song, it's a cultural touchstone. Everyone knows it. The soundtracks often blend traditional Japanese instruments with these spooky atmospheric scores. And the Yōkai powers, they often have these stylized, totally non-realistic sound effects that just heighten the whole supernatural vibe, makes it feel really distinct.
This whole intricate world, though, it didn't just spring fully formed from his head. Mizuki was clearly a serious student of folklore, wasn't he? What were his big inspirations, his research?
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't just an artist. He was a respected Yōkai Kinkyuka, a Yōkai researcher, seriously dedicated. He drew heavily from that 18th century artist, Toriyama Sekien, for the visuals, those illustrated Yōkai encyclopedias, basically. And for the concepts, the ideas behind them, he looked to the work of the 20th century folklorist Yanagita Kunio, who did all this ethnographic research. Mizuki's work is incredibly well-grounded, gives it real authenticity.
But the emotional core, that personal spark, seems to come from his childhood mentor, Nananba, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's totally key. The emotional, the spiritual foundation for his life's work really came from Kageyama Fusa, this woman he called Non-Nanbao. She was apparently a local shaman, and she just filled his head with oral tales, local ghosts, spirits, legends, stories passed down through generations, stuff you wouldn't find in books. They deeply shaped his whole perspective.
It makes you think about the original purpose of Yōkai before Mizuki got hold of them. They must have served vital roles in older Japanese society, right? Helping people make sense of things, maybe even just like keeping the house tidy.
Yeah, they absolutely did. You can think of them as ancient tools for understanding and ordering a mysterious world. A lot of Yōkai beliefs are tied into Shinto animism, the idea that spirits, kami, live in everything. Even man-made objects could get a soul, become tsukumogami.
Like the umbrella ghost.
Exactly, the kasa obek. Or the bakazuri, the sandal ghost. They also explain weird stuff. The akaname, the filth flicker. Said it'd show up in dirty bathrooms, a subtle nudge for hygiene. Or the makuragaishi, the pillow flipper, blamed for moving your pillow while you slept, which used to be seen as a bad omen. And yeah, lots of tales were moral lessons or embodied real fears. The kanaki GeGeGe, that child-crying old man in the mountains who crushes rescuers. A clear warning about mountain dangers. These stories were often practical guides.
So Mizuki wasn't just illustrating these old figures, he fundamentally transformed many of them. What's amazing is how he reimagined them, sometimes completely flipping their nature, turning monsters into friends, vague figures into major villains. Can you walk us through some key examples?
That's where Mizuki's genius really shines. He didn't just draw them, he basically gave them a national identity, defined how modern Japan sees them. He became this modern canonizer. He picked specific yukai, gave them definitive looks based on classics like Seikien, gave them consistent personalities, and often, totally new purposes. Okay, let's look at a few standout examples. First, Iton Momen, that flying roll of cotton cloth in folklore, super dangerous, predatory, would smother or strangle people.
Terrifying.
Right. Mizuki completely flipped it, made it a loyal, kind of comedic member of Kitarō's core family, serves as their flying transport, even has a distinct regional accent. Total moral reversal from terror to beloved sidekick.
Right.
Then there's Nurikabe. Originally just an invisible, annoying wall yukai that blocked travelers, abstract nuisance. Mizuki gave it a body. This giant, sentient, gray wall, quiet, gentle personality, and now a powerful defensive shield for the team. Abstract obstacle becomes a hero. Nezumi Otoko, the rat man, he's fascinating because he's not really from traditional folklore. He's Mizuki's own invention, this half yukai guy, totally amoral, self-serving trickster. He becomes Kitarō's treacherous but somehow essential sidekick, all about greed, bad hygiene, willing to betray anyone for cash.
He sounds awful.
He is, but he's arguably Mizuki's most important narrative invention. He drives so many plots and kind of personifies humanity's worst impulses in this really complex, sometimes funny way. And one more, Nararyong. Folklorically, just this weird old guy who sneaks into houses and acts like he owns the place. Ambiguous, maybe a bit creepy. Mizuki took that and dialed it way up, made him Kitarō's main arch-nemesis. Intelligent, cunning, super ambitious, wants world domination. Mizuki saw that calm audacity as aristocratic arrogance, strategic genius.
Minor pest becomes a major villain.
It's incredible. He keeps the look, the basic concept sometimes, but completely rewires their function, their morality. Exactly, and that deliberate moral shift, that realignment, it's a direct reflection of Mizuki's own deep humanism, his pacifism, things deeply shaped by the horrors he saw in World War II. He really believed in the inherent value of all life, even monsters. He turned the yukai world into this complex society capable of good, capable of redemption.
The series is also really good at taking a traditional folk idea and using it to power a really modern story. Can you give us an example of that?
Oh, definitely. Look at the Vampire Tree episode from the 2018 anime premiere. The plot kicks off when this clueless YouTuber desecrates a sealed stone, right? Unleashes the Nobiagari yukai. Suddenly, people in modern Tokyo start turning into trees, their life force drained by this vampire tree. And Mana, the human protagonist, gets involved because a kid still believes, and she uses the yukai post to call Kitarō.
Right, and what's brilliant there is how it directly links that ancient supernatural threat to a very, very modern problem.
Precisely. The catalyst isn't some ancient evil awakening on its own. It's a direct result of modern vanity, that hollow chase for online fame. The episode becomes this sharp critique of social media culture, using the yukai as a kind of supernatural consequence for a very contemporary human screw-up.
And then we have the Great Yukai War again, but thinking about it as a narrative engine. This recurring story where Japan gets invaded by foreign yukai, led by Blackbeard, who feels very American. Kitarō has to rally all the squabbling Japanese yukai into an army. You said it adapts the Momotaro folktale.
Yeah, the structure is very similar to Momotaro, the hero gathering allies to defeat external threats. But here, it's a powerful post-war national allegory. Mizuki cleverly recasts that often nationalistic Momotaro story into a narrative about cultural self-defense in a globalized world. Those invading Western monsters, they symbolize the huge cultural, political, military weight of the U.S. influence. And Kitarō gathering yukai from all over Japan. That's a symbolic uniting, a reassertion of Japan's own indigenous cultural identity against that pressure. What's also crucial is how interacting with the yukai world shapes the main characters. Take Kitarō's own moral journey. He starts out in the original Hakuba Kitarō as this much more ambiguous, trickster-like figure, then he evolves into the heroic protector we mostly know. But his big internal conflict is that mediator role. He's a Yōkai, loyal to his kind, but he's always protecting humans who, let's face it, often cause the problems.
Right, puts him in a tough spot.
Definitely. And the 2018 series really leans into this, often showing humans as way more monstrous than the Yōkai they fear. It forces Kitarō into these complex moral binds, makes him almost this weary judge of human weakness. It really mirrors Mizuki's own complicated feelings about humanity.
And then there's Mana, the human lead in the 2018 series. She really grounds it for a modern audience, doesn't she? Her whole journey is about learning to see, to believe.
Exactly. Her arc is all about enlightenment. She starts as a pretty typical modern teen, thinks Yōkai are just internet mythology, you know? Her whole journey is about opening her mind, moving past that skepticism, learning to actually believe, and becoming an active participant, an ally in that unseen world. Her development really embodies the show's core message. There's more to reality than just the physical, the material. It's a direct challenge to that modern secular outlook.
This brings up a question for you. What really stands out when you look at how the series evolves over all these years, these different versions? For me, it's that profound shift where increasingly the source of real evil isn't the supernatural, it's the human heart. It feels like a really critical, almost pessimistic view of us.
That shift is absolutely central, yeah. And it highlights the deep thematic resonance of the whole thing. GeGeGe no Kitarō consistently uses its folklore base to explore anxieties that are super relevant to whatever era it's in. It's like a generational barometer. Early on, it was grappling with post-war identity, westernization. Later, you see more environmental themes. And the 2018 series, it dives headfirst into really modern anxieties. Social media addiction, cyberbullying, the loneliness within our hyper-connected world. The Yōkai are the constant thread, but the problems they embody reflect the changing face of Japanese society.
It's also got that strong critique of modernity and environmentalism baked in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yōkai are fundamentally tied to the natural world in this series. Mizuki often uses them as agents of an angry nature, lashing out because of human actions, deforestation, pollution, corporate greed. It positions the Yōkai almost as defenders of an ecological balance that modern humanity has totally forgotten. That theme is deeply rooted in Mizuki's own philosophy, his deep respect for nature.
In that 2018 series, you mentioned modern anxieties. It seems particularly pointed in its social commentary on Japan today.
It really is. Specific episodes become these sharp allegories. There's one about toxic work culture, the Ghost Train episode, where this abusive boss literally gets dragged to hell.
Oof.
Yeah. Others tackle exploitation of foreign workers, the intense pressure to conform in Japanese society, online harassment. In this modern setting, the Yōkai aren't just old monsters. They're powerful metaphors for the societal horrors we're dealing with right now.
So at its very core, philosophically, the whole franchise seems to be this ongoing exploration of how humanity relates to the other. Kitarō's mission for coexistence. It's this enduring plea for tolerance, empathy, understanding each other. And the series keeps hammering home this point. True monstrosity isn't about having a weird face or strange powers. It's about your actions. And often, the real cruelty, the greed, the intolerance, it's not in the Yōkai. It's right here in the human heart.
Absolutely. And if we try to pull it all together, Mizuki's legacy is this incredible synthesis. He faithfully adapted things, creatively reinterpreted them, and crucially, deliberately invented new elements. He kept the core look, the core concepts of many Yōkai, but profoundly changed their morality, gave them complex personalities. And his inventions, like Nezumi Otoko, or the whole idea of the ghost tribe Kitarō belongs to, those provided narrative drive, emotional depth that you just couldn't get purely from folklore.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Mizuki took all these scattered regional folktales and wove them into this coherent, character-driven universe. By giving Yōkai personalities, a society, a reason to care about the world, he made them relatable. And by using that supernatural world to comment on real-world issues, he made them deeply relevant. He didn't just preserve Japanese folklore, he kind of redefined what it means in the modern world, making sure it survives and resonates for new generations. This deep dive really shows how Shigeru no Kitarō is so much more than just entertainment. It's this living cultural narrative, always in dialogue about Japanese identity, the dangers of modernity, and that timeless fight for empathy and coexistence.
Which I think leaves us with a really important question for you to think about. In our world, which feels increasingly rational, maybe increasingly digital, what unseen realities might we be overlooking? Simply because, well, we've stopped believing they could exist. What might be the Yōkai of today that we really need to acknowledge?
Definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us.